Hello, and welcome back to Self-Esteem Issues, Episode 13, Project Hail Mary, Science, Survival, and the Audacity of This Man. Okay, Shelflings, we need to talk. Because I went into this book fully prepared to be confused, slightly bored, and aggressively out of my element. And instead, I got emotionally invested in science, which kind of feels like a personal attack. And not a subtle one either. No warning, no warm-up, just surprise. You care about science now? Question mark? Good luck. Also, before we go any further, this is episode 13, which, if you know me, it's not just a number. It's a personality trait. Unlucky, debatable, unhinged, always. A little cursed in a way that feels exciting. Yeah. So honestly, the fact that this episode is episode 13, it's the one where I leave my comfort genre and end up emotionally attached to a science problem in space, that feels correct. Like, of course, episode 13 said, let's switch genres and destabilize your entire personality for a few hours. Should have seen that coming. Anywho, a book that is so far outside my usual genre, I'm honestly shocked. I made it through the first few chapters without Googling, am I supposed to understand this? Or just nod and move on? Which, as you know, I did have to stop midway through the beginning, read a comfort book, and go back. But yet, here we are, obsessed. Against my will, really, with absolutely no prior consent. Because here's the thing. If a book can drag me out of my comfort genre and make me care about something I actively avoid, that's not just a good book. That's a problem, and I need to talk about it. Let me set the tone for you. We open on a man who wakes up alone. No memory, no context, just confusion, and a situation that is immediately not okay. He's not just in a room. He's in space, alone, with no idea who he is or why he's there. Which already, rude. Like, I'm sorry. No memory and space? Pick a struggle. Now, before you panic, this is not a heavy, inaccessible science lecture disguised as a story. Yes, there's science. A lot of science. But more than I personally would have volunteered for. But the way it's written actually works. It's understandable in a way that doesn't make you feel like you missed a prerequisite class. Because the main character, Ryland Grace, is figuring things out at the same time we are. So instead of feeling like you're being talked at, you're piecing everything together with him. And sometimes you're both wrong, which is comforting, but also mildly concerning. And that's where this book gets dangerous, because it starts off manageable and then quietly becomes something you cannot walk away from. It's the kind of grip where you think you're in control, and then suddenly you're not making decisions anymore. The book is. At its core, this is a survival story, but not in the way you expect. This isn't just about whether he can survive space. It's about whether he can solve a problem that affects everything. And I mean everything. The stakes in this book escalate fast. We're talking global level consequences. Science-based solutions, and one man who did not wake up expecting to carry that responsibility, which makes him immediately relatable. Because, same, if I woke up in that situation, I would also need a minute, or several, or a full emotional reset. Let's talk about Ryland Grace, because this man is doing his best, and I respect that. Because I would not be handling it this well. Let's be honest. He's not your typical trained for this his whole life kind of character. He's more like, I woke up here, and now I guess I'm solving science problems, or we all deal with the consequences, which creates this really interesting energy where he's smart, capable, but also very aware that things are not ideal. That's actually me being generous. Things are deeply, aggressively not ideal. And his internal voice is what makes this book work. Even when things get serious, there's still humor woven in. It keeps the story grounded while still letting the stakes stay high. Give me high stakes and personality. That's all I ask. Truly, the bar is specific, but it's firm. All right, let's get into it. Red flag or redeemable? Ryland Grace is not a red flag. But he's also not someone I would hand full control to without a quick, "are we sure?" moment. He's more like, "I can figure this out, just give me a second to process," which feels realistic. We love a character who doesn't immediately have it all together. Representation matters. He makes decisions that aren't always clean. He hesitates when timing matters, and then he follows through in ways that actually count. That balance is what makes him work, because he doesn't feel like a hero. He feels like a person who got handed something massive and said, "All right, let's try." Reluctant competence? My favorite flavor of main character. Now let's talk about what really makes this book different. Science. Deep breath. We're doing this together. Yes, there's a lot of it, but it's not there to overwhelm you. It's there to drive the story forward. Every explanation has a purpose. Every detail connects to a solution, which means you actually have to pay attention. Rude, but effective. And instead of slowing things down, it builds tension, because you're watching him figure things out in real time. You're watching him test ideas, adjust, rework, and that creates a completely different kind of suspense. Not what's going to happen, but is this actually going to work? And if it doesn't, what's left? And the answer is usually not great. Now we need to talk about something I was not expecting. Thirsty for trouble. Because while this is not a romance, there is a dynamic in this book that completely shifts everything. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm stronger than I look. Because this, tempting as it is, I will say this. What develops in this story adds a layer of connection, trust, and emotional depth that I did not see coming. And it works. It really works. Like, unexpectedly well. Suspiciously well. It takes this from being just a survival story to something bigger. Something more grounded, which is ironic, considering they are not on the ground. And that's when the book really locks you in. So what are you actually getting from this book? You're getting a story that pulls you in immediately. A main character you actually care about. Stakes that feel real. Problem solving that keeps you engaged. And moments that land harder than you expect. Emotionally, without permission. This isn't about loving science. It's about getting pulled into a story that uses science to raise the stakes in a way that feels fresh and different. This is the kind of story that sneaks up on you. Not loud, not flashy, but suddenly you're invested in the outcome, the decisions, the stakes, and you didn't even realize when it happened. And that's what makes it dangerous, because by the time you care, you really care. Final thoughts? This book surprised me in the best way. I went in expecting to tolerate it and ended up fully invested. It's smart without being overwhelming, funny without undercutting the tension, and constantly moving forward in a way that keeps you hooked. It's one of those stories that reveals itself, piece by piece, and when it does, everything clicks into place, and I love that. Respectfully, from a safe emotional distance. And I'm going to say something I don't say lightly. If a book can make you care about something you thought you'd never enjoy, you don't question it. You respect it. Final verdict, read it, even if it's not your genre, especially if it's not your genre, because sometimes the best books are ones you didn't plan on loving. And this one earned it. And I don't say that lightly. And if you ever picked up a book thinking, this is not for me, this is your sign to try it anyway. Join me next week for a return to my true passion, fantasy, with Psycho Fae by Jasmine Moss. And based on what I've heard, we're in trouble. The fun kind. Probably. Until then, read something questionable, trust your instincts, or don't. Bye. Oh, go read something you weren't planning to. It builds character. And go see the movie after you read this book.